Flash #3, written by Cy Spurrier, with art by Mike Diodato Jr., Trish Mulville, and Hassan Atsame El Hwao, who we were told by one of the reviewers this week that it is like the master class of letterers
of the issue. when somebody says that the letterer is the standout of the issue, you know that there's something wrong with the issue.
Yeah, when you're watching a movie and somebody somehow says it's the key grip that was the greatest thing, I don't want to, really rip on letters, but the idea, or you're watching a baseball game and I say, man, you know what the best was? That umpire. Like, letters are the thing that you kind of just, you're there, you don't want it to distract. And at a point, it might do that at one point, but it's okay. You get some kind of clever things. I just think that what happened with this book, and this is allegedly, they all got together. Cy Spurrier called up Mike, said, get Trish and Hassan over here. They all got high and just said, what the fuck? Let's do whatever we want. Because it's one of those things at this point, I think everybody's like, well, if that guy's going to get fucking crazy, then I'm going to get fucking crazy. And now we're all getting crazy. And it's crazy. There's my whole thing. It's crazy, Eric. I think that this issue, so weird. I don't like it. But I think that maybe the reason why I don't like it is more based on the other two bullshit issues before it that has totally left me on out on a limb. Like, I don't even know what the fuck's going on. When we get to this, I get a little bit that I think there is a bit of a story.
This continues what you had in the previous two issues. The ideas and far-out concepts that just want to leave you behind to do weird, wacky stuff visually and friggin', describing things with like, this is like this and this is like that. This continues that, but you know what? You get Max Mercury, you get Mr. Terrific, and you get Bart Allen, the Impulse. And I'm like, that adds to it, at least in my mind, a little bit. But even Impulse is just Impulse from 1999. I'm just so sad of that character never having any growth, even though he was at one point, Kid Flash, and then grew up to become the Flash, died, got reverted back to Kid Flash, and then New 52 happened and became Impulse again after Bendis said, hey, Young Justice, everybody.
Yeah, and so, and here's the thing, maybe if I went back and reread those two issues, but
I'm going to poke with a stick. Quiet down, Bart.
You're not going to pay me to go back and read those other two issues. But when I get into this, like, all of a sudden, like, oh man, Wally's making jokes, but it's more annoying now because of
spooky Speed Force
nonsense
stuff, right?
like that. And like now it's like he's like, before he was talking gibberish with Mr. Terrific and they were trying to do these things. Now he wants to be Mr. Goofball. And it's as if I'm in class, because this feels like I'm trying to be taught something because I don't understand it. And there's that smacked ass next to me while I'm actually trying to learn what's happening. It's like, look at me, I'm an ape. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here. I got so angry. And I didn't want to get angry. And so the nonsense from the first two. And so you end up the first two
issues weird shit going on while you're reading
so
this.
tough for me to get through that when I got to this where I'm like, okay, we're in for at least the long haul for now. I want to enjoy this. Like you said, you get some characters, but then Wally's acting like a smacked ass. Mr. Terrific, like we talked about this before, but again, I'll repeat it. When you end up having these crazy ass things, you need the point of view character to be somebody as dumb as us. That could be Wally. He's a good guy, but he's not smart like those. But instead, I'm an ape. And then Mr. Terrific explains his nonsense explanations and makes it worse. And we never know what's going on.
Dig this. This is the stupidest thing ever. This bothered me for some reason. Okay, I'm gonna probably. I don't know how I'm gonna go about explaining this because I want to have a wrap around to go back to it, but I don't want to lose the train of thought. In this issue, we have a portal that's open through the events of what the gorillas and stuff were doing in the previous two issues. Mr. Terrific and his scientists are trying to get to the bottom of it. Wally West calls him Max Mercury because he knows it has something to do with the Speed Force. Because while he can still access the Speed Force, he's doing something new with it. He's going sideways vibrationally into a side door of reality. Like, not out into the multiverse. It's still Earth, but it's just a different viewpoint of our reality where he can go to the Blobbyverse.
Is he stepping out with Sideways, Eric? Is that possible?
He's stepping out with Wally West is what he's doing. But him and Max are able to go sideways into this other reality on Earth where there's the dead universe, there's a Blobby universe, and all this shit is going on. At the end of this whole show, though, when you get to nothingness, we find out that we still have these teched-up supervillains that we saw previously in the other issues and the lead-up to this, where the Folded Man is there, all super alien teched up. And to wrap this around, the way we're supposed to have this clever little thing to say, I don't even know what the Folded Man's doing, honestly. He's folding realities, but he's there. I think he's just kind of like hanging out there because he can, because he's a fucking Folding Man with alien tech upgrading him. But when we start this out, Mr. Terrific wanted to make sure that this wasn't magic-y stuff or spooky Speed Force stuff, so he even had Zatanna check it out. And all she could do was keep saying, origami backwards until she got a migraine. And I'm like, but that's not, she does backwards magic. Why would she be yelling origami backwards for the idea? She has no idea. This doesn't make any sense.
And when you do that, again, like you said with Bart, I'm going to poke it with a stick. Then you get Wally. I'm on a, and then you get this origami. When you end up like just the idea, this is us in this book, right? And they're like, oh my God, we went to Zatanna to see if it was magic. First off, just say no. The idea, you're trying to be clever. She said origami backwards. Well, what you say next isn't like, okay, you say, what the fuck does that mean? You have a migraine. I feel bad for you. I'll turn off the lights here, give you a little Tylenol, but what the fuck are you talking about? You know, it's not like they said.
Like, why are you using reverse magic and saying origami and have no idea what that means? What is that doing magically? And why is that something that comes out like backwards when you're trying to discover this? You should have the idea in front ways.
Yeah, and in that, you're almost playing the idea that she was so overwhelmed by what happened that she wouldn't say origami backwards. She might.
And origami is just a reference to the folding man at the end.
It's just a reference. It's supposed to be clever.
Just the idea, though, when you show up to Wally West being almost trapped in this other reality sideways reality by the folding man with souped up alien tech enhancing his powers. That's not the reveal I think you want it to be, because nobody gives a fuck about the folded man. I think it's cool that he's here because I say to myself, boy, we don't get enough folded man because he's a fun little character. But in this instance, what is he doing here? Why is he the be-all, end-all that is shaping this other sideways reality that has something to do with this portal that's open but seems to be different from what Wally West is currently doing with his powers?
I sat there and I like, oh, Cy, you cute little guy. You really think Folding Man is a wow moment? It made me giggle. I'm waiting for the next time is then she yells, oh my God, cuts 3 times. That's paper cut, Eric. Cuts back. I want him back now that I saw Folding Man, but
blood work.
It isn't like, hey, it sounds like this is Wally in this beginning. Seems like the Speed Force. No, it might be magic or tech. Do you think it's magic? No, Zatanna, we ended up doing this. She yelled. She screamed at his origami backwards 3 times. 3 times.
How do you think you say that?
It must not be the spooky stuff. And I'm like, what are you doing, Wally? Like, where I want him to be the dumb it down guy. Like, hey, listen there, science-tician. Tell me what I don't know and do know. Explain it to me. The problem is that none of this makes any sense. Cy Spurrier's trying to fool us all into making it seem fancier than it is, because if you really do break down in this issue, I think you actually can start kind of breaking down some of the things to realize there's nothing going on. Like before they had these things, but really they go into that other space. They see you said, the Folding Man, wow moment. He's just hanging around. He's folding shit and doing his deal, but he's not doing anything else. Right?
He's folding sideways realities.
Yeah, he's folding sideways realities and then pissed off as if like, oh, how can you do this and why are you here? But he's not really doing anything. Then you end up where you have Max, which that should be cool. And again, I'm not real familiar with Max.
It should be cool. I've never cared about Max Mercury as our guru of the Speed Force, the mystical wonder man that he is. He's just this guy who, pontificates on being mysterious with what he wants to talk about the speed.
And where I go with this issue is suddenly, as you're going through, because I don't have a
leg day.
I don't. Oh my God, his legs look crazy. Like he needs to fold that shit in, please. So you end up with all this. The little that I've read of Max, I think that what Cy Spurrier does is he's getting these characters. He's going to get that one thing that he thinks people might like and dial it up to 20. That's where you get like Max. He doesn't even talk like a normal person because now he's the guru, like you said, which is fine. But I think it's turned up too much to then bounce off of Wally, who now suddenly becomes just goofball Wally. And then you get over the top, I can't pay attention, Bart, because all he can do is dial these things up. But really all that happens, Max comes and they are, Mr. Terrific and Wally are talking. Wally ends up like, oh man, I was right about those people. But even that, this play that those people ended up being warped out off of, Earth. Now they're in crystallized time that's degrading.
Spheres that are floating in space as the Earth revolves around the sun.
And that's the thing. The best is they're like stuck in space. They're not moving. And so I love the idea. They're like, well, what can we do? oh, well, I guess we're going to have to wait
Whittier.
until next year to go around to get him again. I'm like, no, bitches, you got ways to go get these people and save them. Please,
Hey,
don't
Superman.
even play that. Yeah. Superman. Or, get Brother Eternity and his stupid rocket ships. There's a Rocket Man over there. But anybody could go and get him, and you'd want to. But you're trying to play this game of being fancy, but also saying, well, we don't really have to deal with them because they're stuck in time. But no, time's got your nonsense. So then from there, that was just to say Wally was right, but we don't move forward at all there. Then we have his co-workers, the Mr. Terrific tech guys. They're beating the shit out of each other like assholes. Max Mercury comes in with these legs that I've never seen anything quite like it. And he comes in and is like, hey, well, and even when you get the things, you have Zen Master Speed, Cryptic Dungeon Master vibes. I'm like, that's not that funny. This issue, he seems to have somebody got a hold of him and said, hey, listen, you're a little too fancy. Make it a little funnier. And he's like, oh, man, I'm a funny guy, but he's not. It's not funny in this. And then they walk away, and Max says, oh, you telling Mr. Terrific about this play, what you had this problem with. And he's like, no, I'm going to keep it in the Flash family. That's a mistake right there. Why wouldn't he bring up this idea? And all Max can say is, oh, it's because you think you're going to be fired because you're unreliable. That doesn't even make sense in what's going on and who Mr. Terrific is and
Wally's
who
already
Wally
a
is.
superhero speedster, and he's going to be shifting through reality. So fucking Mr. Terrific ain't got time for that. He's going to be like missing all this time at work.
So you mean, well, seriously, if he ends up admitting this, maybe they'll realize why he is that. But they're trying to figure out this shit. They're trying to figure it out, and that's a big part of it.
I'm Wally West. I'm already working for this, billionaire guy who's a fellow superhero of mine, so I'm getting some leniency along the way. I go and tell his ass I'm seeing visions of alternate realities. Next thing I know, he's sending my ass to the Sanctuary. You know who doesn't need that again? Wally West.
The Sanctuary thing. No, ignore it. You end up where, when this is going on, you're saying that in a book where they're talking the most gibberish bullshit that if he brings this up, they're going to have a fucking field day. You might even stop those assholes fighting the tech. Like,
they're going to start fighting again.
Tana, she comes back yelling origami
variables
3 times backwards, but Wally's afraid to say, listen, I kind of get disjointed with time and end up in this place. And when they do come up, there's the fun. Like, it's so on the nose of this should be something he should know. Also, remember when that portal opened, the whole play in the last issue, it was Barry who was sitting there. And then in this,
he's a sad sack right now. He
Bart
can't get out of bed.
mentions that, but go and talk. What have they gotten from him? He was there when this thing, and now all of a sudden he can't get out of bed. And so that's weird. Then we have Grodd who's, yelling, wait. Then we just get Max Mercury who says, okay, we're going to go into this deal. Maybe this is the Speed Force, maybe it isn't. Let me give you a little massage.
Essentially, we're doing with the Speed Force with jumping through these sideway realities that are the same Earth, same time, stuff like that, just through a different perspective that we're using our powers to get to, or Wally's new powers to get to. We have the Blob Sphere, and in the Blob Sphere, it turns out when you use the Speed Force, it destroys that part of that reality, which the stillness, those cosmic aliens that we saw previously that said you don't even understand how your power works at this point in time, maybe they're there to try to save parts of reality because you start destroying parts of reality, you destroy all of reality because you're a speedster. Along those lines, ultimately, though, Wally finds himself floating through different realities, ends up leaving Max Mercury behind by mistake, and finds a reality where, oh my God, here's all the statues of everybody I love. I'm going to sit down for a second. What am I supposed to do again? Oh yeah, never mind. Folded reality, I'm back home. Where's Max? I don't know. Even when we get to the one point of some reality, there's that caveman that Wally quantum leaped into in the Jeremy Adams initial run of the series. Hey, I remember you. And then they met up again with the rest of the dead people from Sanctuary at that time point.
Is that a moment?
You remember that caveman speedster? Everybody remembers that caveman speedster, huh?
Max is like, yeah, I was talking to some fucking red-eyed buffalo. I don't know what the fuck's going on. And anytime Max says anything, I'm just assuming he was high. He's the guru. But Bart shows up. Hey, we're going to do this. Bart, don't touch anything. He's touching everything.
I'm a poker with a stick.
This is the sort of thing that gets me is when you're trying to...
He just comes off like Gurr from Invader Zim.
Yeah, he does. You're trying to tell a story here, so what are you doing? When they jump into the sideways deal, and they do figure out, listen, and we kind of already were told and kind of knew the play, at least I thought, that this isn't another reality, this isn't a multiverse deal. They're still on Earth, but something's sideways, something's wonky. But that's where you end up. Wally says, and this is what annoys me on this. I call this the blob sphere. That's a scientific term because you have to make a joke. right? And then he says, I guess it's like a psychic ecosystem, maybe. These meat balloons, things always seem pretty harmless, except, like, you never end up getting an answer. It's always a maybe.
Dude,
it's always,
called the
I think
Blobsphere.
this.
I don't even know what I'm supposed to get out of this because it's one of all these different folded realities.
So then he says, and it just looks like people's stomachs.
Here's where the dead people go.
So he's pressing on this thing, and then all of a sudden, oh, that's new. But I did, what's new? I really, actually, I don't know really what was new.
Everything old is new again, huh? Blobsphere.
They're like, oh, Wally, this isn't some alternate reality. The vibrations, the voices, the wind, and you never get an answer. He keeps giving these things where I think it's this, but not. It might be this, but maybe. And so, well, there is none. And so when you have this, I would hope that Si Spurrier, he has a story somewhere, right? Maybe in this Blobsphere. It's missing. It's folded. But he's not doing a good job of letting me know what the fuck it is. And so by this point, when you do have moments...
Tell me who he's letting know what this is.
We're already in a couple issues. I'm not saying that we've had tons of time to explore things, but when Max Mercury, a character that, people do know and maybe like more than you, right? You're a hater.
I'm sure they do.
But if you don't, how am I, get a connection when they come back and say, Max Mercury's missing? How do I get a connection with that? Because you've told bullshit.
Well, why is that? Because the Folded Man. Oh, the Folded Man, huh?
At this point, things could start happening to Wally, and I wouldn't really care because I've had no time to settle down and kind of think things through and get character moments. The character moments are what get me. The idea where Wally doesn't know what's going on. Tie this into the emotions and everything, even when they start giving him, pretty much when he goes into this sideways universe, you might as well have Cats in the Cradle playing because they keep telling Wally didn't spend enough time with people and he didn't have enough time for everybody. I want, all of a sudden Harry Chapin's playing, but I didn't get a connection with that. I didn't get any cares or feels because I don't know what's happening.
The only bit that I feel that we saw for the idea that they're trying to make Wally feel bad about himself is when they talk about the idea that you weren't there for Linda when she was trying to talk about how she felt.
That's Cats in the Cradle.
I'm saying though, but they had all these instances like Barry wanted to spend time, Jay wanted to do this, Irie wanted to do this, and the only one that felt like I had a connection that I understood was the Linda one. So everything else, I'm like, I don't feel like I saw that.
So you have that. And remember, when you jumped into this, you had that
what's going on with Jay?
But none of that was, I know, and none of this was all really set up that much in this book. The only reason you're going to have that thing with, Linda, it was mentioned in this, that she was upset she didn't have the connection. But we saw her, we saw the birth and whatever. So even if you get feels for Max Mercury, that's not from this. That's going to be your pre-deal going in. And even Bart, who's just this goofy guy, doesn't do enough for me to even care about him. You end up tying into things like that caveman. Nobody barely remembers that. And then you have the Folded Man. That is the wow moment. Like, what are you doing?
Hell, I think when the caveman was there at that time point, I'm like, is that supposed to be Narc?
Actually, that's why I brought it. I'm like, that's who it might be. So you end up where then he's in like a wow moment is, oh my God, I'm in this giant garden with all these statues. You don't know what it is. You don't know what's going on.
I have no idea.
No, so... And Mike Deodato Jr. is trying to play, like everybody's getting fucked up and crazy. That's what I said. You even have parts where the characters are over top the paneling, but then they're underneath and they're obscured. You end up getting Hossein Atsame Ohao is doing this crazy stuff with the letters. And I guess Trish Mulvihill is just like, I'm not going to fucking go nuts with that. I'm just going to do my colors. But even then you have some weird plays, but everything... It feels like the book is out here to confuse me more than entertain me. And that's not entertaining to me.
When you have your big reveal of this enemy that's trying to keep Barry and Max Mercury in these sideways realities, it's the Folded Man. I think you might have done better with that reveal if it would have been gross-ass double down. He was like pulling, instead of cards, realities off his face and skin or something along this. I'm just trying to think of somebody who would work along those lines who's bigger than the Folded Man.
What if at the end, this is just me, it's not going to work digitally.
I don't even know if Wally actually ever fought the Folded Man.
He claims, whatever. How about the end? You get the Folded Man, and then you get like Mad Magazine, where you have to fold it, and you're like the all-mighty Aller. is what happens at the
Classic.
end, like you did. Like that would be kind of neat, but it would drive us nuts because we read digitally. But still,
Well, that's one of those things. So the idea of even like, you have a reality that you fold wrong, like that whole, it almost feels like what we did with the New 52 when you're putting all those worlds together to try to get the world to sustain itself at the end of Flashpoint. It was folded wrong, is what it was. We had to regroup.
yeah. When you get this too, you get to this fold, like the folded
I folded
man.
it right now. It says Rebirth.
It ends up the folded man. Like it really feels like that's supposed to be such the big thing that it's the be all end all that you don't really have to do much else with. I'm like, the fuck is that? Then you get away and I'm telling you, I'm grasping for anything to grab onto, and it's most of the stuff is through Max Mercury, but even then you end up having this, do you know this group of people, the Stillness, and you end up where Max is like,
never heard of them.
and Max says like, pretty cool name, but no. And then I'm like,
You mean like the Still Force? No, the Stillness.
most of this is you have Grodd saying wait. Then you also have Max Mercury, who's, chill and Speed Force is what I like to say. He likes to chill, right?
Chill and Speed Force.
Chill and Speed Force. And so when you get really the whole play of this, and I've said it all along, that I just thought that this story was to thin out the herd, that too many people are using the Speed Force. So when you get that, that's a dangerous play, though. That's the devil's hand, as they say, Eric, because you know as well as I do, when you start saying that, that means a guy wants to qualify and explain the Speed Force. And that's what it seems like we're getting towards the idea.
Do it, dummy.
And it ruins everything. So when you have the play,
When Wally said at the beginning, spooky Speed Force stuff, I was good. I'm like, that's all you ever have to do. To say that, because you try to get any deeper than that, you're going to screw things up. Next thing you know, you're going to have the Savage Speed Force land.
but then what happened? And maybe that's where Max is. We're back to the savage lands of the Speed Force, which I like more than a lot of other people are. But you end up where when they say about this, like the idea when you hear somebody in a flash book say, oh my God, something's upset at us because we don't understand the Speed Force and we're using it to, you're like, oh God, here we go. And that's all I can think is happening, but I don't know. I don't even know. I know that Prickly Bear, Flash's guys, they're the villains. Those guys, like I'm telling you, that's how crazy it gets. I make up shit in my head.
I'll tell you this. This might be the most readable issue of Cy Spurrier's Flash so far because he's not giving you all those, detective noir explanations about like,
I think
this
somebody
is like
told him Wally has to dumb it down, but he jokes too much. But it is the most readable.
I appreciate the dumbing down of it because you get a more jokey Wally, which, it can get on your nerves, but I still think it's more apt than what we had previously with the inner monologues of Wally West, where he's like, a 1930s noir detective trying to describe something like a fucking honeycomb. I don't know, but it feels more readable, but I still don't like what we're getting ultimately. The art's fine. It's not something I like for the Flash book, but it's fine for what it's doing because it's giving you that,
such a wacky
kind of creep
book
factor.
Yeah.
But it's just, at the end of the day, I don't like reading this book. It's just really hard, and I don't get the enjoyment that I feel that I should be getting out of a Wally West Flash book that also has Max Mercury and Impulse Bart Allen.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about Amazon's Attack. That it's not even that big a book, but you like it because it throws in characters, it has classic deals. This should be
doing things, and I can understand it.
And the idea where we were worried, oh my God, we're not going to get the Flash family. Well, we're getting Max here. We're getting characters in.
And I didn't expect to get Max and Bart because, we knew that they were going to go off to try to do some future Speed Force stuff to try to find the next barrier. And we knew that they were stopped for whatever was going on. But I didn't expect them to be here. It makes sense, I guess, because they weren't able to leave, that they would show up here. But I never expected
at the beginning, remember when they saw the buffalo and shit like that? But in this, the thing that I thought we're going to get it because this will be the explanation why they can't break the barrier. I don't know.
Which is funny, though, because after last issue, I thought we were going to be getting Barry. Now he's in bed. He don't want to come play today.
And that's the weird play. And in that, we'll even have later, next book, actually, the classic quote-unquote or wink-wink of if you don't see a dead body, they're not really dead kind of deal. But in this, I'm like, Bart says that Barry didn't come out of the room and he was yelling from inside. And I'm like, was he there? Did he get lost? And there was a weird play. Like, is something going on? We're going to go in Barry's bedroom and there's going to be a fucking portal shit because this book is so wacky that I can't say one way or the other. But like you said, it is more readable. That's what I meant at the beginning, that I'm starting to almost feel like I'm seeing a little story, but also because it's more readable, I realize there's not that much of a story, that you're just there and they're just standing around for the most part talking gibberish to see the folding man, To have like Max, there's parts that happen. Max Mercury is missing now. That's the big play. That's really in this. That's all you need to know. That's really the only thing that happens. Yeah. And you have where Bart, he looks like he's crying. I only touched things a couple of times. I'm like, okay. And you get a play of like, is it that important that we know that the people who ended up getting in those bubbles, that they're crystallized time and they're going to be okay? We just have to wait to get them. That's just to put them aside. To say, hey, we didn't let them die, because at one point...
I sit back at the end of this book and I think to myself, what jerks that Wally and Max are leaving Michael Holt with Bart Allen.
Yeah,
that's
really.
All I have to think. Leaving him with somebody like Impulse, it would drive him nuts.
Yeah, and those other nerds there. Also, like, again, though, remember when you end up things in this book, Jay doesn't have a shirt on it. He's at the boiler room. Nobody cares.
He's crying in the boiler room of the school. It's weird.
It took a couple issues to get back to the idea, oh, by the way, we found those guys that got sucked in those bubbles. They're okay. We're just going to have to wait to get them. In the issue that it happened, Wally just left. He didn't even question. He just left and just left them. I think
but we still kind of had the idea where you had them in the first issue. The second issue, Wally got put in one of these bubbles. So you talked about that a little bit. So now it's a progression. Now we're still worried about it because Wally got put in one, but he's okay.
I kind of want my hero to worry when they are there, because in between we saw out of nowhere. What was it? The Velvet Touch? Well, it was the other kid. Remember the kid?
The Indigo Blur?
Yeah, the Indigo Blur. That kid just became the Inside Out Man. I mean, he was just horrific.
He became a monster, man. And then they're like, tore apart an ape who's stuck in the undead version of reality right now.
Yeah, so, the whole, Blur.
What am I reading?
They just left that Blur because he's a Blur now. Nobody even remembers that.
The Indigo Blur was the Indigo Streak.
It might have been the Streak, but I like the Blur. Yeah. Now I'm thinking that those are all his innards in the blob sphere.
See, all I was thinking about was the red-blue Blur, which they called Clark Kent in the Smallville series before he was Superman.
Might be the Streak. It's Streak, all right. Inside Out. Not like what's going on with that? And we do get that other.
He was just a speedster we never saw before. He turned into a monster man and got stuck in another reality where the stillness, a cosmic alien race that we can't see, killed him.
So you go into this sideways stillness other thing, and we end up seeing the one ape who's ripped apart and trying to. I'm confused. I'm sitting there like, all right, he's not really saying shit. Okay, I get it. Plus, I don't have any sort of reaction to it because, again, I don't have any footing, and this is some gorilla. All right, whatever. Go back to Gorilla City, asshole. I don't know why, but I know. But I don't have a feeling, like I'm not getting any sort of feels from this. Like, oh my God, how dare they do that to Ape Guy?
Well, you say that. I have no feels for what Gorilla Grodd's doing in this. He feels so weird and out of touch with everything. He doesn't feel like Gorilla Grodd.
Yeah. What is it? It's, hey, you're Grodd. Oh, that's what he says. Wait, your Grodd sounds a lot like your Batman. Really? Apes are a cowardly, superstitious lot. Get the fuck out of here. But
Classic Wally.
What would you give this?
Again, because it's the most readable out of the series so far, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, I'll give it a 5 as well. Again, some of the art's okay, but then it just starts getting wacky for wacky's sake. That I think this whole book.
And that's a generous 5 because, like I said, I don't enjoy reading this, and that's a huge problem.
You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.